after the first full week of the sprint, that is the 2024 November elections, there is, my goodness, way too much to get to. I'm just glancing at our agenda right now, and we're going to get to like a quarter of this. But hey, there's a lot to cover, and we've got some awesome guests. So let me do some introductions, because we've got a unique guest this time. We've got Tosi Ufodike, who is a local elected official. She's a trustee in Eula Township. She's a business owner. She's a community leader, but she's also a candidate in one of the Tier 1 races in Illinois. So she's going to bring a unique perspective to our podcast this week. Tosi, glad to have you.
Glad to be here. Thank you so much, Collin. I love your show. I watch it, and I'm so happy to be here.
And to anybody who works with Tosi, she watches it when the sun is down and she can't be knocking on doors, right? During the evening hours where we can't raise money or knock on doors. And I know you're out there working hard. Dennis Cook. We've also got Dennis here with us. He's the president of Strive Strategies Group, and he's held a number of political positions, including with the Illinois Young Republicans and the National Young Republicans. Dennis, what's up, man?
Nah, nothing much, man. Busy. Lots of stuff, lot going on, man. But I don't even know what day it is anymore. I don't.
We run into that problem here in this household too. We no idea what day it is, except it seems like Teddy's more cranky on weekends. So we try to convince him it's always a weekday. That way he just doesn't get cranky on us.
I love it.
We also have with us Mark Cavers, who's been with us a few times, including on an in-person episode. We're glad to have Mark with us. He's a longtime political consultant. He's had a lot of success helping candidates get elected at every level in Illinois. Mark, good to have you.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Appreciate the esteemed core team.
We also have, as you said, the core team, Michael and Chris. They're not only core's political experts, they're the biggest Swifties on the planet. What's going on, Chris and Michael?
Another day in paradise, Collin, as I say every week.
Michael, you don't like that picture?
Taylor Swift hasn't been classified as country music in like 12 years now, so we don't claim her anymore.
Was that it? The only music is country music to you? Is that how that works?
Exactly.
Got it. Fair. All right. Let's get into our first topic. Anybody who watches these episodes for the last year and a half knows I hate talking national politics. We will occasionally do it, and we'll especially do it if those national politics have an impact on Illinois races. The debate was this week, what may be the only debate between Trump and Harris. That was this week, and it very well could have an impact down ballot on our races throughout Illinois, so we got to talk about it. I'll first start with just this question, a broad question. How did the debate go? How did you guys think it went, and do you think it will have an impact on any of our races in Illinois? Whoever feels strongly, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, so I don't think that the debate really is going to have that much of an impact. What I've been telling people over the last 48 hours is if Kamala Harris wins this election, it's not going to be because of Tuesday's performance. If Trump wins this election, it's not going to be because of Tuesday's performance. We still have about 53 days left until Election Day. Viewership for the debate was low. It seemed like people were turning it off more and more as the debate went on. I think Trump showed more energy in the debate than he showed since 2016 when we had like prime Trump debating. He missed the two good layups that Harris gave him for counterattacks, and it didn't really work out. He kind of swung right through them. Harris, I don't think did very well either, but the bar was set so low after the first debate where Harris basically just had to go on stage and not be Joe Biden for the media and all the Democratic operatives basically say that she won it handily. I don't think either candidate won the debate. I don't think the debate particularly matters. I think there's a lot of other things that are going with this election, more so than whether or not Trump won this debate or Harris won the debate.
We could debate that point pretty strongly, and if nobody else does, maybe I'll jump in and debate it, because it was pretty clear Harris won that debate. I don't know how we can spin it any other way, but curious if anybody else has thoughts.
Well, I think that I think it was, I don't know what news station it was on, but they were kind of doing a little bit of analysis, and they, looked back over the course of, presidential history and some of these debates and who won and who lost. And there are a lot of like landmark debates that, in the moment we thought, oh, this is really going to make a significant difference in the final result. And, Trump won in 2016, but you look at the polling from those debates where Hillary versus Trump, a lot of the exit polls or the post-debate polls said that Hillary won those debates. So I think, a lot of the people go into these debates with their mind already made up. I think the undecided voters, I don't know, what percentage of that 60 million that watched were undecided. But I did see one thing that I thought was kind of interesting. I think it was from Reuters. They had like a focus group of 10 undecided voters that, they asked them before the debate, what direction are you leaning? And they asked them afterwards, who do you support? And 6 out of the 10 said that after the debate, they were going to vote for Trump. And 3 said that they were going to vote for Harris, 1 undecided. So, it's easy to listen to these pundits and this quote unquote experts, and, they all have their opinions. But what really matters is those undecided voters and what they took away from it, if they even watched it at all.
I feel you, Michael, but again, we're not talking to the press right now. We're talking to people like us, Republicans around the state, conservatives around the state. We can be frank and be honest. Trump did not do well. Trump lost that debate. He was baited constantly, and he took the baits. He had a great opportunity, as Chris said. He had multiple opportunities to just, a decent debater would have wiped the floor with Harris. She didn't win that debate because she did great. She won the debate because she did less awful than Trump did. Can we be honest about that? We'd be crowing. You're saying, oh, it doesn't matter. We'd be saying it mattered if Trump did well. We said it mattered in the last debate. We can't be hypocritical. I can't call out Pritzker for constantly being a hypocrite, and then here we go being hypocrites ourselves. We've got to be real here.
Well, Collin, you're comparing apples to bowling balls between the first debate and the second debate.
Yeah.
The first debate was the first chance for a lot of Americans in the Democratic operative class to basically realize that Joe Biden was not there anymore. This debate wasn't that. There wasn't an opportunity to do that. Did Trump miss at least 2 phenomenal opportunities to hit Harris? Yes. Did Donald Trump take the bait every time Harris cast her line out there? Yes, he did. Did he lose the debate? Okay, if we're going off of high school debate, if this was a high school debate competition and we were going to the judges and they were going to say who won the debate, sure, Kamala Harris won the debate. But we are at a point in American politics, Collin, where these types of debates don't matter as much anymore. Kamala Harris won the debate as soon as she stepped on stage and she wasn't Joe Biden.
I disagree with you. I think it matters. And I'll tell you why I think it matters, because Harris was losing her momentum. Her honeymoon was over. You saw in the polls, the momentum had petered out. Trump was starting to pick up steam a little bit more going into the debate. It was finally back to almost an even race again. The honeymoon was over, and everyone was looking to the debate to say, okay, let's see what we got here. Harris looked presidential. Trump didn't. Harris looked like she actually had some command on stage. Trump just rambled most of the time. The only good moment Trump had was at the very end when, according to you, everyone had already turned off the debate. This was a great opportunity for Republicans to pick up that momentum again, and we needed it for our down ballot candidates. We need that momentum back. And Trump wasted that opportunity. I think as Republicans, we should be frustrated by that fact, because we've got great candidates up and down the ballot where momentum is going to matter. Turnout is going to matter. And what happened on Tuesday in that debate was the left got even more energized. Now the honeymoon gets extended. Now the left has even more momentum and energy going into the next couple of weeks of this election, because Harris did much better than Trump did. And that hurts us. Let's be honest about it.
Well, I think I want to say about the Trump thing. Sorry, I had to interject, because Trump started out when he talks about the tariffs and how if his policies were so bad, why are the tariffs still in place? I wish he would have doubled down on Harris, because he's absolutely right. When we think about Republican policies, they're the best. And the tariffs, that question, she couldn't answer it. So I don't think, Trump did as bad as you're saying, Collin. I just think some of the issues, when you look at the key issues that Trump stands on, I actually think he was hitting on the issues. And I think American people are very smart and they want to know about the issues.
I would maybe say that I don't think that Kamala, quote unquote, won the debate, but I would say that Trump lost it. I think, that there were a lot of opportunities that were missed. There were some statements he made that we, probably could have done without. But I saw polling going in where they were asking undecided voters, well, what are you looking for in this debate? Only 9% of undecided voters said that they were looking to learn more about what Trump's vision for the country was. And there was about 60%, I think it was like 63% said that they were looking to hear more from Kamala Harris. Which is that wasted opportunity. She did not present a plan. Even the moderators said, you've given us no plans, no specifics. Trump could have buried her in that moment. There just were so many wasted opportunities because people were coming to that debate to learn more about Harris. They knew very little about Harris, and Trump could have just buried her. That's what I'm talking about with wasted opportunity, that this could have gone so much the other direction. If we had, as Chris likes to say, if we had Trump 2016 here, we'd be having a different conversation.
We got we got rambling sort of snoozy Trump instead of Trump the killer, and that might cost us.
Well, and I think the problem
Let's
that
let Mark talk. Go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna say, like, I think too, we got spoiled by the last debate where it
Yep.
essentially ends a career. Like, does this debate matter? Everything matters on the margin when you're talking about a couple hundred votes to move an election. And I think like the real opportunity we missed is giving down ballot candidates something in the next news cycle to talk about. So rather than having a case that was prosecuted on inflation or the border, that when people were asked at the door, hey, what did you think about the debate last night? Well, they talked a lot about inflation and we haven't seen any solutions. And here's my solutions. Like, people are answering questions about stuff going on in Ohio and pets getting murdered. And like, that's not helpful for down ballot candidates. So you lose a news cycle in a 53-day window, and that matters.
Yeah, I mean, our candidates are now answering whether or not they believe migrants are eating pets instead of answering questions on, tariffs or immigration or, great issues that actually play for us at the doorsteps, which we're going to talk about shortly. All right, that's as much of a national conversation as I can stomach. Let's move to one other topic that's similar, but it ties to Illinois a lot, which is this. What I noticed out of Harris when she did give any sort of specifics was she basically talked like a Republican. And we see this in Illinois all the time. That Democrats talk like Republicans. They talk about how they want to lower taxes. Harris talked about how she wanted a strong national defense, about how she supported fracking and domestic production of energy. She tried to spin tariffs as price increases. So in other words, she was against fair trade and she's for just open free trade, which hasn't been a popular political position in 20 years. I mean, she spoke like a 2000s Republican, which is what Democrats do. You look at these ads they put out, you look at what they say at doorsteps, they pretend like they're Republicans during election season, then they go legislate like far left progressive Democrats. And this is the problem. Harris got to speak like a Republican and nobody held her responsible for it. I think we have the same challenge in Illinois. I bring it up repeatedly, but we've got a bunch of new guests, so I'm curious what you guys think. How do we hold Democrats accountable? Because they are constantly talking like us. They're saying they're going to lower taxes, even though they just raised taxes. They're saying they're going to lower cost of living when they just raised everybody's cost of living. I mean, they're somebody at some point needs to hold them accountable for this. I'll shut up. What do you guys think?
I think we need to change our messaging in general and stop playing out of defense of doing typical rollout. Like, here I am, candidate A, I'm great, and here are my issues, and not going right. We're not contrasting. We're in these races. We're not contrasting who our opponents are. Like, we should be saying, hey, they're too liberal for the district, and then start highlighting why they're too liberal for the district. For last cycle, maybe some places we did that. This cycle, I do want to piggyback real quick because I didn't get a chance to say anything. I don't think that we're going to see significant coattails down ballot here. I do think we are able to. I think the middle people, they're just floating out there right now. People who are active and involved, they care. They cared about what happened last week. But I'm getting the sense, my true feel is they're like, nobody still woke up after Labor Day, right? Like, Now, I think that plays to our advantage right now. Like, when we're out there knocking these doors, we need to start talking about these opponents, how they're too liberal for the district, and everybody's district is a little bit different, but we're not saying anything. Quit telling our own story and get out there and get on the attack. Stop the shotgun approach, go after them.
Fair.
I think too, like we have, and obviously I'm biased, like candidates like Gabby Shanahan, candidates like Tosi, candidates like Nicole Haas. Like, you have candidates with a track record of doing something. And so it's one thing for them to say we're going to lower taxes and us to also say we're going to lower taxes. But when you can present a track record of doing it, I think that's more credible. And then you can make the attack.
I mean, in 45, again, I will always go back to Rebeletti. In the Rebeletti district, you got Duder, who is raised water rates. We need to go out there and talk about how she raised water rates. Seniors are going to get those bills. Oh, by the way, it's so beautiful how the village of Elmhurst did it. They set it up so that way that first water bill won't hit till January. That's really nice of them, right after the election.
It's always convenient how they do that, right?
Yeah, it's very
just like
nice,
how Fritz
isn't it?
Kagi always drops the Cook County property taxes after the election.
Yep. Or they delay, or they missed the way they missed the window when to drop our property taxes, and it's so nice when we get them like within 3 months of each other. It's awesome.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. Anybody else have thoughts on this? I mean, Tosi, I know you run into this.
Yeah, no,
she's raised taxes down in Springfield, yet she claims she wants to lower taxes.
Yeah, that's the thing that's so frustrating. It's like, I want to say, just be a Democrat. It's like, we put out these policies, and like I said, Republicans have the best policies, But my opponent, every policy, she wants to place herself like she's a moderate, but she's not. So what we do in 51, we're talking to voters, we're knocking doors, we're telling our story, we're being very, very transparent of the voting record. And that's what we're going on. When it comes to taxes, I'm the only one in my township on my board that voted against the levy. Taxes are up in our state. People are struggling. One thing that you always say, Collin, cost of living. And you're right. I mean, I've knocked thousands and thousands of doors, and that's the message. So I think we really, really have to hold our elected officials accountable, and we have to tell the story. And I think I disagree with the guy that said our messaging is wrong. I think Republican messaging is right on track, and that's why so many Democrats are trying to picture themselves and place themselves like a moderate. Everything Republicans, low taxes, good schools, everything, and you'll see a lot of the opponents acting like they're, the Republican or the Republican values. But when you look at, like I said, their voting record, it's awful. And so we just have to keep shouting it and talking to our voters and our constituents about it. Yeah.
I don't think I said that it was wrong. I said that the strategy, a way we go about conducting and our messaging might be a little backwards, and that we should be more on the attack than with sitting back and waiting. Okay, that's how I view it.
Yeah, we always got to be upfront, and I think sometimes we're scared of our message. Like if we start, listen, this is what we want: low taxes. The economy is crazy right now. People can't pay their bills. People can't buy gas, and we're just proud on that. And we don't try and flip flop. Hey, we support the Second Amendment. This is what we're doing, and again, we stand on that. Now, every district, like you said, is different, but we have to make sure we are true to our values and true to what we're telling our voters. And a lot of times the Democrats are not, and that's why they act like moderates, and then when they go in, they vote the most radical liberal way you can look at, basically.
But I think to your point, Tosi, it kind of speaks well to our issues that Democrats constantly steal them. So clearly they got the right issues. And if they're gonna keep talking like us, then clearly we're doing something right.
Every issue that I've put on, I've said it's like the next week, my opponent takes that issue, like every little issue. I'm a voice for a champion for families. Now, it's like we're doing something right and they're copying it. So.
Yeah, I mean, though I do get your point, Dennis, and obviously it's I'm big on contrast and pushing, defining the other side. We're going to talk a little bit about where Democrats are in their cycle in terms of the messages they're putting out. They're going to start putting out their negative messages about our candidates, probably like, if not this weekend, in the next few days here. They're going to be defining our candidates pretty soon here, and we've kind of missed the runway to define our opponents. So I do get your point, and I think we're definitely missing an important part of the strategy there for sure.
Well, that's why I think you knock doors. I don't care what the best definition of a candidate is: knocking doors. Like, no matter what people say about me, I've talked to so many people that even when the negative ads might come out and might not, they've already met me. They've already know, like, I'm not an extremist. I'm not a radical. Anything that people say about me, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, so when you knock doors and actually talk to your voters, they meet you, and then when those negative ads come out, they're going to think twice.
Fair. It's a good segue to our next question, but I just want to be sure, our next topic. Anybody else have thoughts on this, or you ready to move on to the next one?
The only comment I'll make is that you'd mentioned about how the Democrats sound like Republicans 20 years ago. There was a reason why Republicans 20 years ago had historically bad approval ratings. So as I mentioned previously on this podcast, there are advantages to calling out some of the new Democratic policy positions that are Republicans 20 years ago. Like when Kamala Harris brings up being endorsed by Dick Cheney, right? It's always something you could use because nobody liked Dick Cheney when he was in office.
Yeah, ask my wife how she feels about Dick Cheney. I mean, that was one of many, I thought, wasted opportunities for sure. But if Democrats want to parrot our positions from even, let's say, 20 years ago, especially on trade, especially on wars, I mean, there's lots of opportunities here where the electorate has evolved, and the Republican Party has thankfully evolved to some degree. We should let them embrace those policies, but then call them out on it, which is what we're missing, and certainly the point Dennis was making. Let me
Yeah,
go to the
and
next
then-
one here.
and-
Tosi,
oh, so-
Tosi, I want to go to you directly on this next one anyways, which is,
Okay.
we've got a lot of viewers across the state who may not know who you are. We've brought up House District 51. This is one of the best pickup opportunities for Republicans in the whole state in 51. According to some ratings, it's either number 2 or number 3 in best pickup opportunities for Republicans. Why should people across the state care about your race, Tosi? Why should they be paying attention? Why are you going to win? Tell us about your district.
All right. Thank you, Collin. And thank you for always mentioning District 51, because it is, I truly believe, the #1 opportunity seat. They should care about this race because we lost by 3,000 votes last time, and we have the great opportunity. This race is a tier 1 race. It's winnable. We're working so hard. Team Tosi has been knocking doors. When we talk to people, the cost of living, property taxes are so high. People are fed up. They're looking for help. They want something different, and I'm that person. Like I said, I'm a doer. I work hard. I love to represent every single person in the district. I am a Republican, but when I'm elected, I'm going to be a representative for everybody. And we just want to see our district being represented. Like I said, taxes are through the roof. People are just, small businesses are suffering. My opponent got a 0% rating from the National Business Association. I've been endorsed by them. So we knocked doors, and this business owner said, I'm leaving this state. And we were like, why? I can't make, the business rules, taxes, the regulations. I'm in the childcare industry, and I could relate, like just the regulations, the just cost, everything is up. And so people should pay attention, because our race is going to be one to look at. At the beginning of the race, somebody mentioned that the Democrats are going to spend, they know I'm a great candidate. They're going to spend millions and millions and thousands to beat me. And we've seen it now. Like every week, it's a different ad. People are so tired, they throw them away because they want what's real. And they feel like their district is not being represented in the right way. They want somebody who's actually paid a property tax bill, who's been a small business owner, and can actually do good work. And like I said, I'll be excited when I go to Springfield. Our local Republicans, whether it's Ela Township or Palatine Republicans, everybody's just boots on ground. I'm not supported by special interest like my opponent. I am grassroots all the way. So grassroots supporters that have been really, really helping me. I appreciate, but it's just a movement, and people are excited. And when they see me out knocking doors, they're so happy. They're like, what happened to the Republicans? Where are they? You're the first one we've talked to. And they're just so happy. So a lot of people think our district, just because you have more money and you spend more money, but Chris and Michael can tell you it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't determine if you're going to win a race or not. What determines is your heart, your grit, you working, you talking to voters. Knocking doors cannot be underestimated. And again, voters are really looking for something better than what they have right now in Springfield. Because when you have a voting record, you can say you're moderate and you can say you're not for taxes, but people can look it up and see. My opponent supported non-citizens being police officers. That's a huge issue in this area. People were not happy with that. So there are a lot of little votes that have happened that people are taking notes, and people are, tired, and they want something different. So help is on the way.
Nice. Well, I mean, the 51st district, you talk about that district. It's a swingy district, but only because Trump doesn't do us. I can say this, I won't get you in trouble. Trump doesn't do us a ton of favors in that district. He lost it by 13, but Said only won by 7. And she had a lot of support behind her, and the Republican candidate really didn't have as much support behind him. Locally, that district, it's strongly Republican. I mean, if you look at the local races, it's +9 for Republicans. There's absolutely opportunity there. But as you said, Democrats are coming in with the money. Said has gotten the most money of any House Democrat in September, over $250,000. That's tons of mailers, digital ads, staffers. Just they are filling up the district against you and for her. So you certainly are going to be up against it. But as you said, working hard. And to our viewers across the state, if you're looking for key districts where we could possibly flip a seat, obviously we've got a few great ones. Dennis works with Reboletti in 45. That's a great one. And here with Tosi Ufodike in House District 51, these are some of the top pickup opportunities. And then Katie Stewart with Jake Keevan. I'd say those are probably our top 3. let's get those three across the finish line. And then we could obviously 76 and Liz Bishop and some of the others. But these three, if we're not winning these three, we're not winning any of the other ones. These are the ones that are the tip of the spear. So we got to get in these districts. Even if you don't live there, you can call, you can text, you can donate, you can help out.
That's right. And you know why she's spending so much money on my district? Because they understand the threat. They understand how hard we're working. And so they're spending a ton of money because they know that when they see signs everywhere, they see us knocking doors, they see just the momentum. They follow everything I do on Facebook. They understand that people are ready for a change, and they know her seat is very vulnerable because of the work we're doing. So we're just going to keep at it, and we'll see where things end.
I think the couple other reasons it like matters statewide from my perspective is I think the data shows that like in 2016 and 2020, people were willing to vote against Trump, but for Republicans down ballot. And that's less true in the off year. So I think like Tosi's district, in a district where Trump, like you said, Collin, doesn't do us any favors, there's an opportunity to show the rest of the party statewide that you can like split that ticket. I think it's important in the medium term for that area, right? Like McConkey's up in 2 years. So it's an important statewide race for that impact. And then like, as we as a party work on rebranding our party, putting forward and supporting talented, dynamic candidates like Tosi, you know, putting her family and her business on pause, the caucus, you know, recruiting a really good set of candidates. I think it's important for us as a party to win some of these seats with dynamic leaders that will rebrand the party going forward. So I would just add those three things from like a statewide perspective.
Yeah, I think those are good points. And also, let's just be clear. Nabila Saeed is one of the furthest left members down in Springfield. She is far, far, far left. If we can't beat her, we're not going to be able to beat very many people. And I think that's the key here. Yeah, she's young and she works hard and she knocks on doors and she raises a ton of money. But the truth is, you look at their record. That's the key. And if we can't hold Nabila Saeed accountable for her record, then frankly, we should just give up.
Yeah. Well, we never give up.
My point is, if we can't do this, then we're just wasting our time. We got to get this done.
You know what? I was knocking doors, and this Democrat. Okay, two things. If people go to my Facebook, Tosi Ufodike, but there was a lady, and she said she's been a lifelong Democrat. She's voting for me. But then there was a man who's a hard Democrat. He was like, Nabila is not even that strong. He said, if you look, this is a Democrat saying this. And we were like, wow. He's like, I'm going to take your fly. I'm going to research you. You sound great. You're upbeat. You have so much energy. So this is Democrats. They know she's not strong. That's why they dump a bunch of money. And sometimes money is important in politics, but we'll never give up. We'll keep working it. And across all the races in this district, in this state, Republicans soon will see a victory.
Nice. Well, and they're, I'm sure the way Democrats work, they're going to start going nasty after you and your family. So knowing how tough you are, Chidabello and those kids, you guys are tough. I think you guys can take it, right?
Yep. I don't let them bring it on. I'm fine. Like, you know, we got to fight and we can't cower, and they can say what they want to say. You know, the key thing when I'm knocking doors, another thing I do, everybody has coined me the doer, the queen of knocking doors, because I'm not divisive. I have enough of my own record, whether it's my 20 plus years as an auditor, whether it's as a small business owner, just being a mom. You know, you're a parent now, Collin, you understand, you know, so my record speaks for itself. So yes, they might attack different things with regulations and stuff like that with our business, but it's a waste of time. It's not going to stick.
Well, let me shift to a second question for you, Tosi. Then we're going to open it up to some other discussions on other districts. But you're out there knocking on doors. We'd be wasting an opportunity here if we didn't ask you, what are you hearing at Doorsteps? Because we talk a lot about what's resonating with voters. Usually it's, oh, I've got this poll or I've got this research, and that's great. But really, you're talking to actual humans. And so I think for us and for our viewers, I'd love to hear from you. You know, other than Michael, I think, and I know Chris is out there knocking on doors too. But, you know, unfortunately for me, I'm typically stuck behind a computer. I don't get to knock on doors as much anymore. So I'd love to hear from you. What's resonating? What are people talking about? Everyone else can give your thoughts as well, but we'll start with you, Tosi.
Thank you, Collin. So yes, I'm knocking doors. Like I said, I've knocked so many doors, and you are right on point, Collin, actually, in your show. Property taxes, cost of living, people just can't, they're struggling. They think everything is so high in the state. They also, I will say, not as many people are against, I met some that love Trump and some that don't love Trump. So Trump, I mean, either you like him or you don't, but property taxes, some people are talking about guns at the doors. They also talk about education. But the most important thing, time after time, when you say, what's a local issue, what's hurting you, what's affecting you, my taxes, the state, my taxes, everybody, cost of living, finding a job. And then there's some times when I talk to different people, they do talk about reproductive rights and stuff like that. But the majority of people overwhelmingly is cost of living. So I'm not sure why people don't listen to
Democrats are
me say
desperately
it.
trying to make it all about IVF, abortion. Those are their issues they're putting on other mail, other digital. But our poll is saying that that's 10th in the list of 12 issues. Only
And your
4% actually care about that. And it seems like at the doors, you seem to be finding the exact same thing.
Exact same thing. Like I said, I know you do polls, but I always say my poll is when I talk to a voter at the door, and what they're telling me is cost of living, property taxes, just surviving in the state of Illinois. Small businesses talk about surviving in the state. Like I said, very few people talk about because in Illinois it's not an issue. The reproductive. I mean, we have 78 Democrats and 38 Republicans. It's not an issue. It's really not. Reproductive rights and everything. It's not an issue. They want to make it an issue so they can avoid the taxes and the roads and the important thing that local people care about. So
nice. Well, I'd ask for the rest of you. I mean, Michael, I know you're setting a record down in Southern Illinois for number of doors knocked. Chris is out there every chance he gets, even though I keep dragging him to strategy meetings to be my backup. Dennis and Mark, you guys are out there a lot and working with a lot of campaigns. What are you guys all hearing that's resonating outside the polls, just from actual humans?
I mean, I would say, I've seen some of the mail that LaToya Greenwood sent out, and she's hitting a lot of those issues that are being hit by Democrats across the state. She's, standing up to extremists, and, it's all about abortion, IVF. The one thing that I thought was unique on hers was that she was talking about equal pay for women is one of the issues that she's fighting on, which kind of just seems to, I guess there's a little bit of a tie to the cost of living there, but that one really seems to, kind of come out of left field. Maybe they have some polling that suggests that's an issue that's important to people. But when I'm knocking doors, those are not the issues that people are bringing up. A lot of times it's like Tosi said, property taxes, cost of living is a big one. People feel like they're not being represented in Springfield like they would like to, especially in that Katie Stewart district. I've knocked on doors where you pull it up on the app on Numenor and it says, okay, this person is a Democrat. And then you get to their doorstep and they've got a Trump flag up or a Trump yard sign. So I think it's going to take a little while for the data to reflect what the reality is, especially in towns like Caseyville, where a lot of people are switching from consistently voting Democrat to the Republican side. So I think there's going to be some surprises just based on what I see when I talk to folks.
I'm always reminded, like even beyond this weekend post Labor Day, that people don't pay that much attention to this stuff. They don't know who their state reps are. They don't know the issues, and so you get a lot of blank stares. You get a lot of like, "What's this about?" As a volunteer, not as a candidate.
Can I back you up on that? I literally just saw a poll for a state rep, and their name recognition was under 20%, and they've been in the office for over a decade. So just to back up your point, go ahead, Mark.
That's what I was saying, like being out this weekend, and you'd think people, we pay attention, talk about it every day, and still people don't pay attention.
Yeah.
And there are people who think
we forget that. We're political animals, and we forget that.
Yeah.
There are people
are so like into, when I knock doors, they're so into the presidential, like Trump and Kamala, and it's like, no, local. And you're right, they don't know who the local person is. And that's why I think the Democrats spend so much money on name ID and getting the name out. Yeah.
Dennis, what were you going to say?
Yeah, there are some people who think that Dennis Reboletti still rep.
Yeah.
From years ago, right? Because he represented part of his district. So people are like, well, he's not the rep. Like, nah, it's been a while.
Actually, when they say he's not the rep, first you say, do you think things are going well? And if they say yes, you go, yeah, he is the rep.
There are still people in the city of Chicago who think Bill Lipinski is their congressman. So,
oh, wow.
Chris, you're not going to break their hearts, so don't tell them. Like, don't ruin
God bless those people, man. God bless them.
All right, let's keep moving along. We've got Cavers here, and one of the races that I think is a bit under the radar, considering it's frankly one of our most vulnerable seats potentially. I have it, frankly, as our second most vulnerable. Democrats seem to have it as their fourth most vulnerable. But we really got to talk about Brandun Schweizer in House District 104, Jarrett Clem. And Mark, I know you've got some insights on that. I'd just love to hear from you. What's going on in that race? How are things going? I know Democrats have been outspending the Republican there kind of 4-1, but it's early. What's going on there?
And I don't know that I have particular insights, so I just say, like, generally, I think these, the Central Illinois districts, the Desi Anderson district, the Katie Stewart one, the Gabby Shanahan, I feel like the opposite of the Tosi seat, if we are going to win among blue collar voters, like, that's where we'll see it. There are some culturally conservative people that Trump doesn't hurt us as much at the top of the ticket, that Kamala doesn't help the other side as much. So I have reasons for optimistic in some of those. Those would be my reasons for optimism in some of these, like, more ex-urban and downstate districts.
Been interesting to watch that race simply because Chris has put forward, I think, a good point, as have some others, that maybe it's because Democrats just assume the unions are gonna hold the water here, but really on paper this should be their number 2 target. And frankly, they're not spending anywhere near as much money in this race as they are in some of the other races. Under 100K from what I'm seeing, though I don't have numbers from the last couple days here, but they're not dumping as much money here. Chris, do you think it's just because they expect unions are going to carry the weight? Because I expected them to come in much harder here than they have.
Yeah, it seems like they expect the unions to carry the weight down there in 104. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they do like a late push or something like that. One thing to remember about the Democrats is, like, on the one hand, they're terrified of the GOP that, like, Ken Griffin's going to move back to the state of Illinois one day and just drop like $60 million one day, and somehow the Republican Party will be viable again in this state. So they're constantly terrified of that. But they're also, like, you talk to Democrats, and they're also, like, strangely overconfident, like, a lot, especially down there in 104. They just expect, like, the turnout in Danville and Rantoul is going to be such that, like, they can just write the race off. Like, oh yeah, we got that one already. Rantoul's going to show up. Like, that's how they think. That's how they think that in some of these races. So I wouldn't look too deep into it right now. It's very possible that they'll start dumping money down there. But yes, I do think they're optimistic. A lot of the unions are going to come in down there, and maybe it's not the program for the House Dems isn't as strong as in 104 as it might be going in races right now because of the unions.
I agree with you. I talked to a couple people who are in or near that district in the last week, and they said something similar, that it just seems like Dems are overconfident there too. I talked last week about how they're just overly cocky about McLaughlin's race, thinking they're just going to wipe them out no matter what they do. And it sounds like they're overly cocky about this race too. They think it's basically over already. And when your opponent's going to make a mistake, no reason to stop him from making that mistake. So I'll let him keep being cocky all the way through November 5th. But Schweitzer's a strong candidate, and I know they're running a strong race there. Certainly I hope they keep overlooking that race. That would be great for us.
Yeah. And people underestimate Marty, like Representative Marty. He's working hard. He has name recognition. People really, really like what he's done in that state. So let them underestimate it. It's good for him.
Yeah, I always say I'd rather my opponent underestimate me. It gives me an advantage.
Exactly.
All right, let's keep moving along. Butler, I know you really want to talk about Kevin Schmidt in House District 114. There's was a poll being done in that district. We won't give any more than that, because certainly want to put anybody in a bad spot here. But polling is being done by the GOP in that district on messaging specifically, and it gave some great Oppo on LaToya Greenwood. And you know what? Let's help the Republicans. Let's start pushing that Oppo out now. I mean, there was some great stuff in there that clearly is going to work real well in making voters remember why they fired LaToya Greenwood in the first place. Michael, what do you got?
Yeah, so there was a lot in there about her voting record, some of the key votes that she made, to increase the gas tax. She voted for the Safety Act. There were some income tax related questions on some of those votes that she made when she was in the legislature. There's some personal stuff about not paying her property taxes.
33 times? Let's be
33
clear.
times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And also my personal favorite, when her and one of her friends tried stealing a television from Best Buy in Fairview Heights. So maybe that one will get out there.
Charged with disorderly conduct for that.
Yeah, I think she was like running interference for the guy that was trying to take it. That was my understanding based on the article that I read. So yeah, there's a lot of content there, and we'll see what, when they get the poll results back, they'll know what the most effective messaging is and what they need to be using against her. And if I had to, they haven't done any negative on Kevin yet on the mail that I've seen. It's just been positive on her, but I'm sure the time will come for that. Last time they basically referenced, like, they pretended like he was an incumbent and that he had cast all these votes. And they're like, Kevin Schmidt voted no on this, and he wasn't even an elected official yet. So I anticipate they're going to do something similar this time, but at least now they'll have slight credibility because he actually does have a voting record, but his voting record is very good.
The way they approach their negative stuff is what polls the worst, and then how do we just make up a way to make that seem like it's actually accurate. Like, it's really just like, what polls the worst? People don't like X. Okay, Kevin Schmidt is for X. Why? I don't know. He liked a Facebook post 20 years ago that had that word in it. Like, that's just sort of how they approach their negative when they put out their negatives. There's not like, we like to look at it as how did somebody vote and what have they said? And okay, how do we craft a narrative around that? That's what we're supposed to do. Democrats have no shame in this state. They just, if it's not true, they just make it up. And I'm not advocating we do the same thing, because I like that we have some integrity. We are playing at a disadvantage when the left just says, yeah, we'll say whatever. And apparently the media just lets them get away with it.
Well, and I think one of the problems that they're going to have in that district, and I think it was probably one of the problems they had last time, is that the makeup of that district is very diverse. The issues and things that matter on the western side are very different from the eastern side. So she can send out mailers saying that she's pro-choice and how important abortion is to her. And that may play well in some communities, but it's not going to play well in towns like Millstadt and Freiburg, where you have a lot of German Catholic pro-life individuals that are like, oh, she's for that, I'm not voting for her. Some of the Democrats out there are opposed to those things.
Listen, in these races, targeting is absolutely important. Dennis, I know that's something you've pushed for a long time in politics, is, targeting our messages, targeting our campaigns. Don't just give some blanket statement, because it's not going to play in a whole district. You mentioned 45. There are every neighborhood in that district, let alone every community, is going to be different.
And I am targeting. I mean, the digital targeting we're doing is, I think we all should be doing it. It works. Now, it's a pain in the butt sometimes just with the content creation, but it works. I mean, on top of look, it's all combined, right? Everything's a piece of the puzzle. You're walk-in, you're mail-in, digital, all of it. You get all things going, it gives you the best chance to win. It's just, far too long, we've all come across candidates who are like, well, I'm just going to do digital. Like, well, that's not enough. Like, you got to do it all. It's, it, you train everybody, you get out there, you talk to everybody on a constant basis, right? So but
to your point, it's hard work. I mean, it's why it drives me crazy when I see these big budget campaigns paying these DC firms where they just do one ad in a whole state, or they do one version of an ad for 3 months in a congressional district. And you're like, come on, could you put in a little effort? I mean, yeah, it's hard work to produce 30, 40 different types of ads, but with ChatGPT, nowadays you can do it in about 3 minutes. It's not that hard.
That being said, you take the L2 data and some of the consumer data, you match it, you get out there. Hey, I got a bait, guys. Let's go find a motorcycle, guys. Throw the motorcycle
ad. It's not that hard, but you got to be willing to put in a little effort.
Yeah, you got to sit there and do it still, right? But
Right.
That's where I meant, exactly. That's where I meant earlier, Collin. Taking this wide net approach.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
Well, and we've seen that with Democrats a lot. They want to push this abortion message. They want to push this IVF message, this extremely sort of liberal message that works in suburban, affluent, white communities. That's great, but that only works in those spots. I mean, that's not, frankly, the Latoya Greenwood district or the Kevin Schmidt district. So if they want to do that, again, let's let them make that mistake. They've come in with nearly $250,000 just in this month, and we're only 12 days in this month. I mean, they are coming in with all sorts of money in that race. Republicans have not had the money to keep up. I know Kevin's working his tail off, Michael, down there. I know there's a lot of people out there knocking on doors. To Tosi's point, knocking on doors is great. It's going to make a big difference. But if Democrats are coming in with, they're already past $250,000 just this month. Last month, they spent a couple $100,000. I mean, at a certain point, that is going to have an impact.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see Republicans polling, because we're ready to come in with some money and some spending in 114 if we're going to hold this seat.
On the walking side, I don't know. I mean, I've only been on a few of these with you guys, but we've been telling our walkers to talk to the Zoom. Put the card up there. Hey, sorry I missed you. Vote for Dems.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little video.
Yeah.
Right? It's a
Yep.
3 to 5 second video,
That's
and they're
it.
going to look at it. So
That's
share
it.
it.
That's
It's like,
it.
you know what? You're not going to answer the door, then I'm going to talk to the Zoom.
That's
Yeah,
right. You
or
know,
like,
it
well,
works.
we've got that Ring doorbell. Like, yeah, just
Yeah.
To the
campaign the
Zoom.
Ring
That's what I mean.
doorbells.
Talk to the Ring doorbell. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, who's this
If
guy?
you know how many people have called me because of that and donated, I mean, $50, 100, but every bit helps. I leave the Zoom. Hey, I'm Tosi.
Yeah.
I'm here. Da, da,
Yeah,
da.
I'm here.
And
I'm here.
and they, yeah, you're absolutely right, Dennis.
I'm not selling you
know-
anything, but here's my card. Sorry, I missed you. I know
Sorry,
you're
I missed
seeing it.
you. But
I like it.
Collin, I was going to say one other issue that is when I knock doors is the whole Israel and the Hamas. And, you know, I stand with Israel. I pray for world peace for everybody, but Israel has the right to defend themselves. And what we're hearing, and we all know about the letter my opponent signed, basically siding with Hamas. And it's so important because every district is different, but people are really upset about that, you know, because terrorist is terrorist. There's any way you slice it, wrong is wrong. And that's another issue that people are talking about at the October 7th tragedy. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, let's move to another district here. We've talked about House District 79. This is Jackie Haas. We've talked about it a number of times. Our buddy Patrick Finkston did a write-up this week on that race. And something really the only reason why I'm bringing this up, and if you guys have more thoughts, we could keep talking about it, but the main reason I'm bringing it up is Billy Morgan in that interview is trying to blame Jackie Haas for the high cost of living. And kudos to Finkston. I mean, he plays it both sides, but he even still kind of, put it in there like, hey, Democrats have a super majority in Springfield. How do you blame Jackie Haas for what's going on with taxes and cost of living? But this is part of that tried and true strategy of Democrats of just say whatever it takes. They're saying that they're fiscally conservative, that somehow it's the Republicans down in Springfield who want higher cost of living, higher taxes. I mean, they'll say anything unless they're called to the table on it. They will say anything. And Billy Morgan just proved that. I mean, he called Jackie Haas the problem, and the reason why we have a cost of living problem in the state, despite the fact that Republicans are in the super minority and aren't even let in the room during the budget process. We're not even allowed to have a voice at all in that process. And here we go. Billy Morgan says it's Jackie Haas's fault. So I don't know. I just wanted to rant about that. If anybody else has thoughts about Jackie Haas and House District 79, I don't think the race is in play. I think Billy Morgan's just going to end up losing and wasting everybody's time and wasting the Democrats' money. But, maybe you guys could disagree with me on that.
Well, look, here's an advantage every time you're running against an incumbent. Doesn't matter if they're Democrat, Republican, if their party's in power, if their party's out of power. If somebody's an incumbent, you can always rely on the fact that if things are going wrong, you could say, hey, that person's in office right now, things are bad, I don't want to vote for them. There was a door I knocked on during the primary, and this voter did not even ask me Democrat, Republican, didn't ask me any issues my candidate stood for, anything like that. You know what they asked me? They asked me, is this guy in office right now? I said, no, he's challenging the incumbent. He said, I'll vote for him. I'm voting all the incumbents out of there. They're screwing everything up. Taxes are too high. The economy's a mess right now, whatever. And that's an effective strategy, even in a general election. It's like, yeah, does Jackie Haas have anything to do with the current state of the economy or high cost living in the state of Illinois? Heck no, Republicans are a super minority. They're almost useless down in Springfield. But the good news, but a voter thinks to themselves, things are bad. Billy Morgan's not the incumbent. So he's going to think to themselves, well, Billy Morgan's not the incumbent. He said he's going to fix this. The current guy got in there's not doing anything. I'll vote for the challenger. So it's somewhat effective strategy. The only thing I'll add is that I certainly agree with Collin. I think this is a fool there in trying to take Jackie Haas out. Billy Morgan is a decent candidate for Democrat standards. I think they're giving it their all in House District 79, and you got to respect them for it. But at the same time, Jackie Haas is going to be fine. She's going to win. Even if they're going to go all out trying to take her out, Jackie Haas will win. She's a great state representative, but it's not a terrible strategy what the Democrats are trying with them.
Chris, I mean, listen, I agree with what you're saying because I like Dennis. I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I had to run campaigns during the Tea Party era, and I sometimes had to run incumbent campaigns during the Tea Party era when every voter, left or right, was like throw every bum out regardless of party. So I've had to live through real anti-incumbent electorates. This isn't quite that, though there is some of it for sure. But as somebody who had to live through those Tea Party days and defend incumbents during those Tea Party days, I don't want to go back to having to do that. So I feel you there.
I always go back to like the book, The Responsive Chord. And when you have to flip voters like underlying assumption about a race. If you're trying to convince Republicans, or if you're trying to convince voters that Republicans are the one driving inflation, and that is like the opposite of the intuitive feeling, that is a very hard and very expensive proposition. And I don't know that Billy Morgan has the money, the time, the resources to do that.
Yeah, fair. One thing I want to give, because we always want to give constructive advice to our candidates, and one thing that stood out to me in that article, Jackie Haas did a great job in the interview. She did a 9 out of 10, and I only want to bring up that 1 out of 10, not to nitpick her, but to make sure we're giving good advice to our candidates. So when asked what issues matter, and they talked about cost of living, to Haas's credit, she immediately went to cost of living, and she said buying groceries. So I'll just read it. People with families are very worried about buying groceries, being able to feed and clothe their kids and put gas in their cars. It's a great answer, but Billy Morgan took it one step further, and it's something we could all, I think, just be reminded of. He said it's the cost of living that's driving people right now, the rising cost of groceries, gas, utilities, prescription drugs. And I think the reason why I bring this up is Republicans tend to forget about utilities. We tend to forget about healthcare. Those are all part of cost of living too. We always go to gas and groceries. We sometimes go to housing. We forget to bring up a lot of times utilities, energy costs. Utility costs are exorbitant in this state. We can bring that up. We need to bring that up. The other thing we forget to bring up is healthcare. Healthcare in a lot of polls is 4th, 3rd. Sometimes it's as high as 3rd in some polls on people's issues. That's also a cost of living issue, and we tend to forget to bring that up. Democrats are really good about talking about prescription drugs. They're really good about talking about healthcare costs. But frankly, they're the ones driving up healthcare costs. There's great space for us as Republicans to be talking about healthcare as Dennis watches Dora the Explorer in his background. Plenty of opportunities for us to be talking about healthcare.
I guess that link is dead.
There we go. But anyways, that's my point is, so not to in any way diminish what Haas did. She did great bringing up cost of living, but just to our Republican candidates across the state, don't forget healthcare. Don't forget utilities. Those are also drivers of cost of living, and we got to talk about them.
Yeah, because and Collin, again, you're right, because when I knock doors, especially when I talk to seniors and I'm like, what's an issue? They're like, my healthcare costs. This is rising, and so you're right. We have to do a better job of talking about the healthcare prescription, because our opponents and the Democrats over talk about it every second, how they're trying to, when they're the ones driving everything up.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they had multiple bills just this last session where Democrats voted to raise people's health insurance costs. You've got the votes. If somebody's an incumbent and they voted for these bills, they have voted to raise people's health insurance costs. And so you want to talk about healthcare costs. Insurance is a big driver of that, at least for maybe not for seniors, but for many others. And middle-class families, middle-aged families, they're one of our best demographics of swing voters that we can swing. And health insurance is a big driver of their votes right now. And Democrats in Illinois have raised their health insurance costs. That's absolutely something we got to be talking about.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to another district. We are chugging along, and I love it. Let's talk about Senate District 40. We talked about it last week because Phillip Nagel, the Senate Republicans, have made Senate District 40 their main focus because they don't have very many other places to focus on. So they've gone all in on Senate District 40. They've been, and we talked about it last week. Well, Democrats are up on TV now for their candidate, Patrick Joyce. It's a negative ad on Phillip Nagel. They're attacking him, mostly on abortion. They're putting a decent amount of money behind it. So money is definitely flowing in Senate District 40. Once again, here we go. Democrats right out the gate. It's abortion, 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 because they're obsessed with abortion and sex. Chris, maybe I'll start with you. I know this is towards your region there, towards your area. What are you hearing? I mean, they're up on TV already here. It means for the next 2 months, they're going to be filling the airwaves.
You know, the thing I have to mention about the attacks on Nagel from Joyce on the abortion issue is that, number one, like you said, it's abortion, abortion, abortion all the time. It's always about abortion, even when it isn't. But the interesting thing about Joyce using this is that Joyce has always been one of the most moderate members of the Illinois State Senate on the abortion issue. He's supported restrictions on abortion. I think his father was a state senator who was a pro-life state Democrat in the Illinois Senate. Patrick Joyce isn't some, personal Pat Brady type. But even still, the Democrats are going to push the abortion message in this district, which isn't even a strong abortion issue district. So
yeah, it's a working class district for sure. It's a blue collar district.
So you can tell that there's some level of just blanketing. We talked about blanketing earlier, blanket campaigning. And it seems like both on the Senate and the House side of the Democrats, it really doesn't matter what their own incumbent's particular stance on an issue is. It's more of, hey, Phillip Nagel is going to restrict abortion even in the cases of rape and incest. Nagel might not have even mentioned like that specific restrictions ever, but they're just going to run with it. So it's just something to look out for if you're a candidate, even if you don't hold those particular issues, even if your opponent happens to be a moderate on the abortion issue, expect the Senate and House Dems are going to use against you because for whatever reason, the House and Senate Democrats just think everybody cares about abortion.
Well, this is the personal PAC playbook. This is the personal PAC playbook. Say that every Republican wants to make abortion illegal and throw women in jail, and that they don't believe in the exceptions, whether it's true or not. Personal PAC's been doing that for over a decade in Illinois, and Democrats have just sort of copy pasted. But again, not that Senate District 40 is in play. Let's be real here. On paper, it's going to be really tough for us to win that, but the Senate Republicans are making a go of it. It's really not a district where this copy paste strategy by Democrats is going to be overly successful. Republicans may be able to overperform how we did last time around in Senate District 40, which is momentum, and I'll take momentum for sure.
No, and I think
Jackie Haas down ballot, right? Because that's the
right.
Same
Senate, same, yeah. But I would say, like, certainly, I expect Phillip Nagel to do better than he did in 2022. Does that mean he's going to win? I don't think so. But is it possible? Yes. I mean, in theory, the trends of that district are such that they're moving to the right, both in the southern part of the district and even the northern part of the district in like the Chicago Heights Stager area. So it's certainly within the realm of possibilities that Phillip Nagel can win. But at the very least, I'm going to say, and I'll hold myself to this, Phillip Nagel will do better in 2024 than he did in 2022. That is certainly going to happen.
I think it also demonstrates like the risks of trying to take issues off the table and saying like I'm pro-choice as a Republican, because they're going to say you're not no matter what you do. And I think it also points to like the real opportunity we have this cycle, because as Collin said, that issue, the salience of that issue, people making their decision based on that issue, like doesn't even register. And so, they can run an abortion all they want, try and raise that as the issue. But if voters continue to be concerned about inflation, like that's not going to be enough.
I think the Democrats, I just think it seems like the Democrats, from some of the stuff I've seen on the House side, are just banking on like, hey, women voters are going to save the day for us. Because you look at these issues that they're putting out there. I mean, they're putting a big emphasis on things like the wage gap and abortion and IVF. And it's like, well, I mean, you can put all your eggs in that basket if you want, but there are men out there that vote too. And I don't think they're voting based on those issues. So if the Democrats want to really hyper focus on those issues, which I think would only move, a smaller segment of the electorate, I mean, go for it. But I don't think it's going to get them where they think it is.
Well, where they succeed, to the point, if we get stuck on the issue, we're kind of talking about like issues that are resonating, but where Democrats beat us on this is they use the issue to prove the larger point. So if they're able to say this makes, now so-and-so is an extremist because of this, now that's where we're behind. So just got to make sure we don't get lost in that yes, abortion is not resonating as an issue itself, but Democrats use that to prove that Republicans are extremists. To Michael's point, it's not actually working super well with women. Female turnout has been down the last couple of elections, but where it's working is with moderate males. That's where we're getting killed right now, and where we have been getting killed for the last 2, 3, 4 years. So that's where the strategy is, and that's where we can't let them lap us. The issue itself isn't playing. We can't let them beat us on the higher level, on the bigger game, because that's where we tend to struggle. Last thing, I just want to ask you guys this. So I tend to notice things, and sometimes it's me reading way too into stuff, and sometimes there's something there. This might be the former, it might be the latter. Chris usually tells me I'm reading too much into things. But in that TV ad, they don't call him Phillip Nagel, the Democrats, they call him Phil Nagel, even though he's running as Phillip Nagel. And I'm not in the district. I don't have any information as to why they might do that. But I mean, he's on the ballot as Phillip Nagel, isn't he? So why in the TV ad are they calling him Phil Nagel? Is it just because it sounds younger and they're trying to paint him as a young guy? Or I can't figure out why they would call him Phil Nagel in the TV ads when that's not even the name he's running under.
Sounds like Finagle. I don't know. That's literally the best answer I can give you.
I can't figure out why yet, but it seems intentional.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe they had to fill up time slots. It also kind of demeans your opponent a little bit. You don't call them by their proper name. You just go, hey, old Philly Nagel over there. Look at him go, opposing women's right to choose. We can't go with Philly Nagel over here, guys. That's maybe part of it. I'm sure we've done stuff similar to that before. You kind of just make fun of your opponent's name sometimes, but I wouldn't. Yeah, Collin, you're right. I think you're reading too much in.
Well, I know last elections.
We all thought I was reading too much into the Project 2025 stuff until I got proof that there was a reason why they were doing it. So I'm not always wrong when I read too much into stuff.
Last cycle, when Jennifer Cordy was running against Katie Stewart, they did something similar, and a lot of times they would refer to her as Jen Cordy instead of Jennifer. So I don't know. Maybe it's just for time. Maybe we're reading too much into it, or maybe they think there's some strategy behind that, like that it kind of lessens the opponent.
I've got a long history of doing this when it comes to my candidate's name. I'm very intentional about what name we put on the ballot. Sometimes I drive Ryan a little nuts with that, because before he can draft the petition, first I want to strategically decide what name we want to go with, because in some districts you want to be more friendly and use the softer version, the Phil, the Jen. And in some districts, if you're running for state's attorney or you're running in a high income area, you want to sound more refined, and so you go with Phillip instead of Phil. And so sometimes, a lot of times, you're very intentional about what you do or don't name your candidate. So there might be more here, Chris, than you're giving me credit for, because again, sometimes you are going to be intentional about what name you use on the ballot.
The only one I can think of is it sounds like finagle. Like, listen, maybe that's what
I go back to Bob Dold. I mean, we ran him as Robert Dold for a reason, because the North Shore is not going to go vote for Bobby, but they'll vote for Robert Dold. I mean, sometimes that has an impact. All right, we'll keep moving along. Let's talk about, just as a higher level, we've talked about some specific districts here. Let's go at a higher level, because one thing that we've talked about in previous weeks, and it's even more accentuated just the last couple of weeks, is Democrats using this theme of being fed up with politics. A lot of their latest mailers, their latest ads have really been using this theme. Some of the mailers that came out this week, in the 76th from Murray Briel, they talked about how her family's been working the land. These are our values. They're not politicians or politics. For the mailers from Mara Hirschauer, it's, politicians are fighting again amongst themselves, but I stand up for us. For Jackie Williamson, it was, even kids get this. Politicians fighting each other, nobody wins. Last one I'll use was another Jackie Williamson one. Jackie Williamson isn't a politician. We talked about this either last week or the week before, but this is a clear intentional effort by Democrats to paint Republicans as politicians and to paint their candidates as not politicians. This is not accidental. This is clearly intentional, and we've talked about it. Our polling showed that people are fed up with politics, and so if you can align yourself with the people and align your opponent with the politicians, you're going to be on the side of the majority there. So this is not accidental, and the Democrats are really leaning hard into this.
Yeah, I think you look down here in the Metro East, in that Katie Stewart district, they're talking about emphasizing how she's a mom, she's a teacher, things like that, not that she's a politician. I mean, she hasn't taught a class in 8 years, so I don't know if you still call her that, right? But I guess they're going to go for it. But then on the flip side, in that Kevin Schmidt district, they really lean into the, like, LaToya Greenwood is your state rep. It's a lot of kind of more like, hey, LaToya's fighting for you and things like that. I mean, since the day she lost, she continued to identify as a state rep, and she's done that, for almost 2 years now. So that one's a little unique, but for the most part, it does seem like they're really leaning into that. Hey, we're not politicians, even though they are.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this narrative work. We've got a client who uses that people over politics mantra, and it works every time we pull it.
I use it. I use
Danny
it.
Davis uses it.
I mean, it pulls off the charts. So, I mean, it definitely works.
Yeah.
But frankly, since Republicans aren't the ones in power, I really wish we would embrace it instead of letting Democrats own that narrative.
Yeah. No, I mean, people are tired of career politicians. You see it on the news. You see it everywhere. And like you said, they're in power. They've had the state for years. It's a one-party state. People are sick and tired of that. And that's what I tell people. I am really, truly not a politician, career politician. We must put people over politics, and people are really, really excited. They're fed up with the status quo, and they see the way the state is turning, and with immigration, taxes. And so I think it's a strategy that works.
Also, threats to democracy still comes in at second in the polls that I've seen in Illinois as issues. And the direct tie to that is people are fed up with politics. They're fed up with both parties. They're fed up with the national personalities on either side of the aisle. They're just fed up. And so the more we can tap into that, the more we're going to be on the side of, well, frankly, winning.
That's right.
All right, we'll keep moving along. Let's talk about spending. I know we always say that if we work hard, we can overcome some of the spending disadvantage that we have. But let's be real, that disadvantage is not a small disadvantage. I mean, look at the spending on the Democrat side, 2.5 million, almost 3 million in the month of September already. And I'm looking at some of these districts, 4-1, they're spending more than Amy Grant. 10-1, they're overspending Jake Keevan on behalf of Katie Stewart. And McLaughlin's race is like 100-1. They're spending for Maria Peterson. You mentioned Desi Anderson. They're outspending her. What is this? I can't do math on the fly. 11-1. Gabby Shanahan's doing pretty good against Benton. It's almost 1-1, so that's awesome to see. Looking at the open 45th, they're outspending you guys, Dennis, 5-1, 6-1. I mean, as much as we say working hard is how we overcome this disadvantage, it is still a disadvantage. And we got to be honest about that and open about that.
That's right.
Democrats right now are killing us on money, and it's just the middle of September. What do you guys have thoughts about that? I mean, I know we overcome work. I get it. But we're still going to need some money to get our message out there.
Yeah, but I want to also push back. Like, why do you think that is? Like, in every race, the Democrats are outspending the Republicans. I know in my race, there's a lot of out-of-state money, special interest groups, and a lot of times Republicans, we're just working hard. We're talking to those individual voters that they might be giving you $25. It's their last $25, and they really, really want to support you. We don't take money from all these deep pockets out of state. Like, why is somebody all the way in California interested in my race? Like, those are the things. So unless you have some feedback as to why you think in every race Democrats are spending and have the money 11-1, like I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, they have the money, so why not spend it? I mean, that's just, they're in power. They've got the money. They've got control. They've got the special interest, as you brought up. But I think it's a fair point, certainly in your race, to bring up, like, what do people in California, why do they care about my district? Because I think the average voter in the district isn't going to look favorably at California politics being brought into your House district. So there's a narrative, there's a spin. So there's absolutely a way to spin this, but the point here is we have to spin it because we are getting just vastly outspent, and you can work hard and you can overcome some of this disadvantage, but at a certain point you can't overcome all of this disadvantage. And it's a challenge. It's absolutely a challenge.
Well, Republicans are always going to be fighting from behind in terms of the monetary side of this race until Ken Griffin decides to move back to the state of Illinois and drop
or
$60
until we just
million.
take fundraising seriously.
That's where I was going to go with
this.
this.
Ken the only guy with money in this state?
Yeah.
Or
We don't need Republicans, apparently. But no,
get a new example.
The point I was trying to make is that, you don't have to match your opponent dollar for dollar. And yes, the spending discrepancy is very, very large. This is true. However, in some races, all it takes is doing enough paid outreach, enough door knocking, and enough, digital and everything like that. And, you're getting your message out to voters. We've always been outspent by the Democrats as Republicans in the state. But what I hear from a lot of Republican candidates right now, it's like, well, I might do a text message. I don't know. Not going to have the money to do really much else. I'm knocking doors. Or we got them up on some digital, a couple thousand, but like, I don't really have the money for anything else. It all comes down to fundraising. There are so many races where the Republicans lose by like 5 points. And it's like the guy that the Democrats were running against did nothing. He just knocked on doors and put up some yard signs. Imagine if we had like $40,000. I mean, that's a big, scary number for a lot of candidates. I'm sorry, but imagine if we had $40,000 to spend in some races at the county or the county level and be like, wow, we could win some of these, but it's just not happening right now because people aren't picking up the phone and actually doing real fundraising.
And this is what drives me nuts, because right now we're in those conversations with candidates and it's like, oh, let me see, I might be able to afford to do a text message. Meanwhile, Democrats are on mailer number 12 and we're like, oh, maybe I could do some digital ads. But part of why I want to bring this up is Dennis is mentioned. He's working in 45. Rebelletti's done a decent job raising some funds, and some of the other groups are raising funds there. Gabby, Mark, you brought her up. She's done a great job raising some money. Tosi, I know you've raised some money. To other candidates who aren't raising money, what are you guys doing that these other candidates aren't doing? Because I've got the data that proves it, that if both sides raise enough to get their message out, you don't need as much as the other side, but if you raise enough to get your message out, then the money disadvantage is 3 points. You lose 3 points at the polls, being outspent 10-1, 20-1, as long as you have enough to get your message out. Now, if you don't have enough to get your message out, you're going to get demolished. But as long as you raise enough to be competitive, they can run 50 mailers as long as you can run 7 or 8. But if you run 1, you're done. So like you have to raise enough to get your message out. And then you're only back 3 points, which 3 points is a lot, but it's not 10 or 20, but you got to at least raise enough to get your message out. But with most of these races we're talking about, these Republican candidates, it's the middle of September. They haven't started their digital ads yet. They haven't put out any mailers yet. No race. You're not going to win if you're not already in mailboxes now, if you're not already up with digital ads now, if you haven't been doing texting for a month or 2 already. But most of our Republican candidates are just now thinking about doing these things. And so that's my frustration. But between Dennis, Mark, and Tosi, we've got some candidates or operatives who work with candidates who actually have done a little fundraising. So to the rest of them out there, give them some advice here, please.
You know, hey, I'm gonna do it now. Please, if you're watching this lovely show and you want to donate to my campaign, we work so hard. Go to tosiforrep.com. Every dollar counts, and we use it very, very properly. So, Collin, you're absolutely right. We got every chance you get your fundraising, but it's hard because, as Chris mentioned, Ken Griffith 15 times that he's left the state. Everybody is just holding their dollars. A lot of our big donors have left the state, but then there are a lot of, like I said, Republicans, we don't get the dark money. We don't get special interest money. We have to hustle. And what I do is everybody, I mean, my chairman was amazing. He did give me some money at the beginning of the campaign, Vince Foglia. But even after that, you have to hustle. You got to be talking every chance you get. Sometimes people feel nobody likes asking for money because it's like you're begging. But at the same time, you have to say, hey, it takes money to run a campaign. We looked at some mailers. That's $31,000 for 5 mailers. You have yard signs. We just picked some up. That's $2,000 dropped. I mean, the money adds up. So you got to be everywhere. As a candidate, you're strapped for time. Everybody is pulling you which way. People are advising you. You got to be a little tough and say no sometimes, but you got to be just asking every chance you get for money. I mean, we've raised some money, but again, it's not millions, but you know, we've raised some money, but it goes so fast. But every chance you get, if you're working hard, people see that and they try and donate. But it could be, you know, I seriously think if you have $100,000 and like you said, you market yourself with the mailers and stuff like that, you can really put mailers out there. You can do some digital ads, and you really just have to make that ask. And you sometimes have to ask 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times because these people are being asked, the same people that people find out are having a little dollars, whatever, they're going to ask them the same time about giving to their campaign, and they want to win. They're successful, and it's like a bet. They want to bet on you. If they see you working and you're asking, they will donate, but it's tough. It's something even I struggle with because I'm a business owner. I like to work and do my own thing. I don't like to beg, but you have to ask and you have to be nice and you have to show people that you're working hard, and $1,000 is not going to cut it. You got to put in some of your own money. Like my husband and I put in some of our own money, and you just have to work it, and it's an ongoing process. And the people like Lynn O'Brien, who is great at it, you know, you listen to her feedback and you do what she says. And, you know, people want to help, but again, they also want to win. And like you said, in this state, you know, Republicans sometimes don't have the best track record of winning, but if they really see you're working hard and you're asking and you're there, they will give you what they can. And you just have to be very, very appreciative because everybody can't write you a $25,000 check, but they might give you 1,000, 50, 100, and it adds up.
I had to buy drinks for a buddy of mine last week because he was beating his head against the wall, trying to convince his candidate to do one fundraiser in the month of September. Meanwhile, Tosi sends me her emails every week. She's got 3 or 4 or 5 fundraisers coming up in the next couple of weeks. I mean, that's what it takes. Yeah. Mark, I know you've worked closely with Gabby. She's done pretty well on fundraising. I mean, it takes work, right? But you got to get out there and you got to do it. And most of these Republican candidates aren't doing it.
Yeah. I mean, like Tosi said, not to like make it too simple, like there's the operational piece. You have to do the work. You have to build the relationships. Like as candidates, you have to remember you're not asking for you, just like you do a favor to other people and help them with their kids' Girl Scout cookie purchase because you want to help a good cause. Like you're asking people to invest in a good cause, not giving money to you. And then like you have to show people why it matters and why it matters beyond getting me elected. And I think like you think about the unique angle, right? For Gabby, the other side, the unions have said they're going to come after Gabby as a proxy for the free market movement. And so like that is a vision, that is a why that you can pitch beyond, I need to win the 97th district. Like that is a bigger vision and mission. And so you have to figure out what that is for you and then show why it's a smart investment. Like people aren't giving you a gift. You're saying, here's why it matters. And here's how we're going to win. So again, like it's easy to say in a minute.
Hard to do.
Very hard.
I'm doing it.
But that would be the little bit of advice I would offer.
And you know what? I've gotten if you know how many $100 bills I've gotten by knocking doors, there was a time when me and Nikki, we choose.
And then you very carefully make sure it's reported, right? I just want to say
Of course.
just for anybody watching, even though it's cash, you make sure it's reported.
We're Republicans. We report our money. We're knocking, and it was raining, pouring down rain. And the guy said, just because you're out here, I'm going to give you something. And boom, so again, it's not easy to do. If you're a candidate, I applaud you. It's hard work, but you just got to keep at it. Because like Mark said, you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for the good of the community and the district or state, whatever you're running for.
Dennis, you were trying to jump in. Hold it real quick, Michael. Dennis was trying to jump in. Go ahead.
I piggyback on Mark a little bit about the operational side to give advice. The budgeting, when you're building out your campaign budget, whether top tier, middle tier, or low tier, right? Build out that budget, backfill, know what the cost is. So when you go to your donors, like, hey, this is what $5,000 is going to get me. This is what $10,000 is going to get me. This is what $20,000 is going to get me. If the donor knows where you're going to put the money and how you're going to deploy it, they're more likely to give you that money. So you got to build out, the candidates got to build out their program. Hey, if you get more, then you go to that next tier program. You get more, then obviously more the better. But as long as you know your buckets where you want to put it, instead of just saying, hey, give me money because I need money, have the plan. But that's right for all of us who've done this is at the beginning of the game, right? Build out that budget at the beginning. That's all I got. That's just my advice.
That's good advice. Yeah, it's good advice. I've seen a study that said that donors or potential donors are over 65% more likely to give if you give them something tangible to give towards. I'm trying to put out a mailer. Here's the mailer I want to put out. It's really powerful, but I need $6,000 or whatever, 31 grand, or I don't remember what you said, Tosi, but like give them something tangible to give towards. That's great advice, Dennis. Yeah. Michael, I cut you off, so go ahead, buddy.
No, it's all right. I was just going to say, recently it seems like, both parties have been overly reliant on a few like major donors to kind of fund everything, right? Like we had Bruce Rauner and Ken Griffin, and the Democrats have people like Pritzker. And, that is easy on the front end. It's easy on the short term to get those big checks from those big donors. But we all know from personal experience that, sometimes those people just stop writing checks for whatever reason. So that's why it's important, like as Republicans, as candidates, as elected officials, that we kind of build out that fundraising program, because that is a lot more sustainable than relying on, big checks from a handful. And I understand it's a lot of work to build that out, but, you just got to nickel and dime it, because the nickel and dimes, you need more of them, but it's more sustainable.
And not to disagree with Michael, like the one other thing I would say is you invest 10 hours or whatever the math, like you invest time into larger donors and it's going to take longer to cultivate, but the return is greater. And so like that would be something to keep in mind too. Like if you're trying to ask, if you want to raise $100,000 gift, like that's a year process to get there. And you should think about it that way. And you should invest the time and energy into that relationship. And in some ways that time is better spent than nickel and dime. Again, not to disagree with Michael, but like the effort.
Please disagree. Everyone's always so nice to Michael.
The different kind
of Michael. We love Michael.
Like the effort that goes into trying to raise the $100,000 gift versus the $101,000 gifts. Like I would invest the time into that one big gift.
But you know what?
Listen, I know. Look at Michael. He's so cute. Nobody wants to disagree with him. But it's okay to disagree with him.
But no, I was going to say my $10 donors. I just feel like in the $25, yes, the $10,000 donors, you appreciate every dime, but those people that have the $25 and write you a letter and say this is their last, this is all they can afford, but they believe in you so much. I cherish those people so much, because it's their like they're really giving you what they have, and they really
their widow's mite. It's the widow's mite, right? I mean, you respect that because it cost them so much. But to Mark's credit, I mean, I agree with Mark that you can chew gum and walk at the same time. You can do more than one thing at the same time.
If you're going to get to $1 million in a state rep race, you can't do it at $25 increments.
Oh, of
It's
course.
a
Of
digital.
course.
Yeah,
fundraiser.
but
should
just like
respect
Tosi mentioned,
both.
she had Vince Foglia and some other very generous and wonderful people, and then she's got the lower dollar donors too. The point here is you're gonna have to do both to win. All right, let's do some quick hits as we close this out. We always, if we have time, we always like to give people some issues that they may have missed, some things that are happening they may have missed that could help them in their campaigns. We've got 3 in the agenda here. We'll go through them quickly, but I just want to bring them up because they may be helpful to some candidates. First thing here is Stellantis. I've been railing on this for a little bit here because it drives me crazy. Just this week, it was announced that Stellantis is investing over $400 million in 3 plants in Michigan. And oh, by the way, Belvidere is still shuttered, and they've now delayed that even further. First of all, I like to rail on Pritzker. Where's Pritzker on this? You got all front page news, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock news for saving Belvidere. And here it's still shuttered, and yet Stellantis is putting all their money into Michigan. So, where's Pritzker on this, and why isn't the media calling him out? But for our Republican candidates, you talk about working families. Here's a failure of the Democrats. That Stellantis plant is still empty. That's on around the necks of the Democrats for failing those working families. But Republican policies, a pro-business agenda where those businesses could succeed, would mean Stellantis would be opening that plant instead of closing it down, which is what they've talked about. The environment in Illinois is not conducive for them to make money and to be profitable. And so as Republicans, we can point that out as yet another failure of the Democrats in this state.
Yeah.
I know it's quick hits. I'll pause if anyone else has thoughts. Usually this is just where I rant for a minute, but in case anyone has thoughts.
Just quickly, just to go back to my race, like in 51 and just being a pro-business candidate, it is where it is. We have to support our small businesses. We have to support our working families. So yes, shame on Pritzker and the Democrats.
Another one that, frankly, I think is especially useful for our House candidates, and we're talking about a lot of House races right now. This hit a couple weeks ago. We just haven't had time to talk about it. So Speaker Welsh formed yet another working group, and yet again, it was all Democrats, no Republicans. And this time it was to reform public transit. And oh, wouldn't you know, immediately what comes out is that basically what this is a Chicago and Cook County takeover. Anybody who's been involved in politics for more than 5 minutes in the suburbs knows that there's a constant fight between the suburban counties and Chicago and Cook County over RTA funding, RTA control, transit control, public transit control. And it looks like Democrats are going to be behind basically what is a takeover of our transit system, our public transit system by Chicago. If you're running in the suburbs, this isn't something you're going to put on the front of a mail piece, but it is absolutely something you can use to your advantage that thanks to Democrats and Speaker Welsh and all of the members of the House, which some of our candidates we're running against are members of the House, it looks like they're going to back. And I would hold them up. Hey, do you back this? Do you support this Chicago takeover of our transit system? Do you want Metro to be taken over by Chicago? Do you support that or do you not? Because I can imagine that riders of the Metro really don't want the people who run CTA also running Metro. Again, not something we're going to put on maybe a TV ad, but a quick hit, a fundraising email or something where we can take a whack at our opponents and make them speak out in the press and make them take sides. Do you support Welsh and the Democrats in Chicago, or are you actually going to stand up for your suburban community that you represent? This is absolutely something, and kudos to McCombie and the House Republicans. They came out with a blistering press release. I don't often give them credit, so I got to do it. I got to give them credit. They came out with a great press release on this. We absolutely need to hold Democrats accountable for this because Metro riders do not want CTA taking over Metro. Absolutely are not going to be in favor of that.
Look, here's a little small story for you. When I was in college, I used to take the CTA to school. I used to take either the Orange Line to the Red Line or Metro to the Red Line to get to Loyola. And before COVID, it was beautiful. CTA, I mean, it wasn't perfect, but the CTA ran pretty well. Ever since COVID, the CTA has been terrible. Chicago Transit Authority, especially under Brandun Johnson, has been terrible. Do you want these people taking over the rest of the transit in the Chicagoland area? I do not, frankly. So if you're a suburban candidate, utilize it. This has been an issue that's been going on for literally decades, going back to like the 70s, I think. This has been a big issue. So use it. It could be big. Well, not big, but it's something.
At very least, you get a positive press hit, you make your opponent, you put them on defensive. And as somebody mentioned it earlier, I don't remember, I think maybe it was Dennis, we're always playing defense instead of playing offense. These little hits, again, they don't move the needle a ton, but if every week you can make your opponents play defense, then you're starting to put the arrow back on your side where now you have the initiative. It's why we bring these issues up. Last one of these. So a left-leaning blog this week actually accidentally admitted that outmigration is happening. So what they did is they brought up this Illinois University presentation that was talking about how outmigration has been happening in Illinois back since the 1900s, even the 1800s. So saying this has been happening for a long time, but this same blog is constantly saying there's no outmigration. It's a lie. There's no outmigration. Well, we all know that that's not absolutely true, that there absolutely is outmigration. Tosi, I know you've got a personal story. One of your neighbors wants to leave or did leave or something like that. I mean, outmigration is a serious challenge, and Western Illinois University brought it up. This left-leaning blog then reposted it. Outmigration has not only been happening for a while, but it's absolutely happening right now under the policies of Democrats in the state. People want to leave. And I'd be bringing up that presentation and saying, look, proof. People are leaving the state of Illinois under Democratic leadership, and we got to be talking about it.
All right.
If they don't think people are leaving, they should try telling that to the Illinois congressional delegation, because there's one less member. So they must have went somewhere. You know, we're down a seat.
Yeah, and listen, I'm the first to say outmigration just doesn't pull for us as a campaign issue, even though I wish it did and it should. So I'm not saying to make this one of your top 3 issues, but again, these are the issues we bring up. Or listen, these quick hits throughout the course of a campaign to put your opponent on the defensive. Here you have Western Illinois University with this whole presentation. I'll have Lane bring it up on screen, where people are leaving. And what's the fastest shrinking segment of the whole segment? It's people under 20. It's our talent. Our talent is leaving this state. The second most likely to leave is 20 to 39. We've got young professionals, the people we need to put down roots in the state so we have a future in this state, and they're leaving.
Right.
You want to talk about senior voters? These are their grandkids who are leaving the state, and now they're not near their grandparents, and their grandparents aren't going to be around to see them. I mean, it's got some play, and it's under Democratic policies that this is happening.
Well, and I know you've kind of made this point before, Collin, but basically it's not that people are leaving. It's the reasons why they're leaving. That's what you emphasize. You know, it's cost of living. It's lack of opportunities in this state. That's why people are leaving and they're not coming back.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to be hitting home. Not that, oh, did you know X number of people left last year? Everybody knows people are leaving, but it's the reason why.
You're absolutely right. And then also, it's like the age group you mentioned. So many people can't afford to buy a home in Illinois in certain areas, so they're going somewhere else. Taxes,
which is cost of living, right?
Cost of living. Everything ties back to that. So we got to keep.
And that's the thing. Again, I want to clarify. I'm not telling you to go out and make outmigration one of your top issues to our candidates who are watching this, because it doesn't pull as well as it should. I've been the first to say stop talking about outmigration. So don't think that I'm flipping that around here. It's not one of our top issues, but this is where the Democrats are so good. They take something that happened and they tie it to their campaign issues. So just like Tosi did expertly there, outmigration ties to cost of living. That's why under 40-year-olds can't find jobs here. They can't find opportunities here. They can't afford a home here. It's cost of living. We can use these things that are happening in the news to prove our larger points. And now it gives us a reason to be out in the press with press releases. It gives us a reason to be doing events and press conferences to call attention to our issues. Instead of just thinking that, why isn't the press covering our race? Well, go be interesting, and then they'll cover you.
The other thing I would say, Collin, and I like bringing up these 3 issues, or these 2 issues, and then I think there's a burgeoning crisis with the budget and the need for tax hikes next year. So if you think of those 3 things, and for like, you have a lot of elected officials, you have local elected officials, and so I would encourage them all to be thinking about like, how do I prepare and how do I build a narrative to capitalize this over the next year? Maybe it's not the right move for candidates like in the next 53 days, but if I'm a state rep, like, how do I own this market position? How do I put forward a narrative over the next year? Because these things are going to come to a head in the next year, in the next 9 months.
Right.
Yep, totally. All right. I have taken up way too much of our guest time, so we're going to wind this thing down. As always, we end with a fun segment, our OGs and clowns of the week. You are not required to nominate anybody if you don't want to, but we like to have a little fun here. Anybody who's an OG who you think deserves praise over the last week, ideally Illinois politics, but it could be national politics, and anybody you think deserves a little scorn from the last week, feel free. Anybody jump in with anybody you want to throw out there.
Well, I have 2. Well, I'll start with Kathy Salvi. I know she's probably been an OG before, but we're hosting a fundraiser at her house October 6th. And, she's taking the reins from Don Tracy. And I just think, her positive message of unity and, trying to work together, helping all people across her district, and just being that positive voice is something that the Republican Party needs. So I think she's definitely an OG of the week.
We're too much doom and gloom. So we need
we're
optimists like Tosi and Kathy. It helps balance us out for us old cranky people.
And my second OG of the week, this is more of the groups, and this is so near and dear to me, is my precinct committee men and women that work so tirelessly, and they're volunteers. We don't have, like I said, a ton of money to pay all these people like my opponent does. We have people that really feel in their heart that this is the best thing to do. And it's our precinct, Ela Township, it's Palatine Township, Vernon Township, Barrington. I just want to say thank you. They're all OGs. They work so hard. Everybody that knocks doors when you're precinct committee men and women, it's a hard job. You're out in the sun, snow, sleet, rain, and you're doing it most times for other candidates. So I always want to say thank you. They're the real OGs of the Republican Party.
I like it. And looking through my Facebook memories, this is the time where I'm reminded for 15 years, me being out there every day knocking on doors. Wow. I'm not gonna lie, being at my point where now Chris and Michael knock on the doors and I don't do it as much. I don't mind it, I'm not gonna lie, but those memories are they're positive. It's fun to see back, 10 years ago, I was knocking on doors as I was dropping. So it's a fun experience.
Yeah, thank you.
Who else has thoughts?
I would just mention Congressman LaHood, who very quietly has given tens of thousands of dollars to candidates and organizations. And I think that maybe goes unnoticed. And so I think he's a big part of, $1,000, $2,500, $5,000 to individual candidates that aren't even in his congressional district.
Yeah, LaHood has definitely stepped up and been a leader for Republicans in the state. So I definitely echo that.
I would say kind of in a similar vein, Representative Charlie Meyer. He's been getting a lot of heat from people like Tom DeVore, which is just silly. But he told me the other day that he did the math and he's contributed $478,000 to Republican candidates since he first got elected as a state representative. And that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
We always say we need our candidates in safe districts to raise money so they can help our candidates in the difficult districts, and Charlie does that.
No doubt.
Anybody else have thoughts? I'm apparently I was cranky today. I got 3 clowns, so you guys are all giving the positive. I'll give the negative.
I can put Taylor Swift up as one of the clowns of the week for endorsing Kamala Harris. I mean, we kind of expected it, but
Yeah, she endorsed Biden, and she's a childless cat lady, so. I'm saying it was obvious she was going to endorse Kamala. Right?
Yeah.
So to that vein, one of my clowns, some of you are going to disagree, and I hate this. This is the second time I've done this, but yet again, I've got a Jesse Sullivan tweet that I got to call out because he put out a tweet that said, attacking women for looking up to Taylor Swift and saying that their men are failing if they allow their wives and children to look up to Taylor Swift in any capacity. Your main job is to help your wife and children get to heaven. Lane will bring up the tweet. I get where he's coming from, I guess, here, but I don't know. It's just a really bad look here. Frankly, I don't have daughters, but there are so many bad people that kids can look up to today. I don't like that Taylor Swift endorsed the Democrat, but am I going to put Swift at the top of the list where it's she's a horrible influence on kids? I mean, compared to some of these other influences that they could have out there, she's pretty milquetoast. I don't know. And it just this sort of traditional view of men allowing their women to look up to Taylor Swift, that's just not how the world works anymore. I guess now we know. One of my buddies in our Discord said, now we know why Jesse Sullivan didn't play super well in the suburbs. I don't know. I thought the tweet was tone deaf, and it just really, really rubbed me the wrong way. So again, I really like Jesse, but that tweet for that tweet, I say Clown of the Week nomination for me. Another couple. So local race here, the local Pioneer Press ran a story about some of the races in their area, and they talked about Tracy Katz Mule in her district and said she had no opponent, completely ignoring the fact that she did have an opponent, Daniel Baer. And the thing is, I can't even say that this is lazy journalism, because Daniel Baer was one of those candidates that's been in the news for months now because the House Democrats tried to keep Katie Stewart's opponent and all these other Republicans from being slated to make it in. So Baer's been in the news for this for several months, and yet the Pioneer Press was just too damn lazy to pay attention, or maybe some people believe they were purposely doing this to ignore the Republican candidate. I don't know about that. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But I do know that not even paying attention enough to the races to mention that the Republican candidate exists exists. This is kind of why when people want to defend local journalism, I mean, this is one of the reasons why it's hard to say we got to defend that local journalism if they can't even mention the Republican candidate. So, Con of the Week to that Pioneer Press article and to the writer and the editors of that, completely ignoring the Republican candidate. Had to call that out. Last one for me. This is ticky tack for the State Board of Elections. For the 5th time in the last 3-4 election cycles, they have put out a petition, a sample petition that has an error in it. They have put out a sample petition that has an error saying every candidate should use our sample petition. And for the 5th time in the last 5 election cycles, that petition has an error. This time it's minor. It's just a spelling error. Lane can bring it up on screen. It's a minor spelling error, but come on, how can we have faith in the State Board of Elections and in our electoral process if the official petition we're supposed to use has a spelling error in it and they can't even do their damn jobs and put out a good petition that doesn't have an error, and it keeps happening. So, Con of the Week to excuse me, to ISB for not even paying close enough attention to do their petitions correctly. All right, everybody good? We got all of our clowns and OGs out there. All right, we'll close down with our closing thoughts because we're way over time. Chris, you've been asleep a little bit, so why don't you wake up and kick us off here?
Well, baseball fans, we're in the home stretch now. And the biggest piece of advice I can give to any candidates watching this is that don't only rely on Dorn. I love Dorn. I'm known as the field guy at core. I'm known as one of the biggest proponents of field in the entire Illinois Republican Party, to whatever extent I am a Republican. However, you cannot only win a race by only knocking on doors. While knocking on doors is the most effective way to gain a vote, it is not the only way to gain a vote. You need to add to your campaign by doing things like text messaging, digital, mail, any other form of paid outreach, because you're never going to be able to talk to every targeted voter going door to door. I don't care what type of field army you have. If you do too much, you'll hit the rate of diminishing returns with voters. And if you do too little, you're not going to get anywhere. So look into doing other things in your campaign. Hit the phones, dial for dollars, get that extra couple bucks that you can do to get yourself a mailer or a digital ad or something like that. Don't only knock on doors. I hear so many candidates say, I'm knocking on doors, I'm putting out yard signs. It's not enough. Got to do a little bit more here, guys. It's the home stretch. Don't leave anything on the table.
I like that. We'll let all of our guests go last. So, Michael, go ahead and go next.
I would just say, we're getting into it's the final stretch, 53 days left, I guess 52 by the time this plays, right? And we just got to make the most of every moment and get the vote out because we have a lot of opportunities this cycle. And like Chris said, door knocking's good. You need to do as much of that as you possibly can. But we got to be hitting the mailboxes, the digital, the texting. And I think there's a few guys on this Zoom right now that can help you with that if you need it. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Speaking of one of those guys, Dennis, final thoughts for the week.
Buckle down, buckle up, man. It's going to be a long, long ride here. These 50 some odd days are going to feel like an eternity. It's not too late to do those things. As we said, if you haven't done your plans, do your plans now, build those budgets out and put it together. Plenty of time. Still do some things for some of those candidates out there. Look, I enjoy coming on this show, having this banter back and forth, and I look forward to doing it again, hopefully one more time before the end of the cycle, see how things play out in October, right? So, but Collin, thanks again for having me on. I enjoy it.
Awesome. We're glad to have you. Mark, I know pulling you off the campaign trail for an hour and a half is a lot, so thanks for giving us your time. Your final thoughts.
Thank you. Good luck to everyone. Appreciate everyone running. Like, there'll be nastiness, there'll be lies. Don't let it impact you too much. Keep your head up. You're in it for the right reasons. And yeah, we've taken enough of Tosi's time to get her off the door, so let her out of here.
Yeah, Tosi, I know you're going to go right to doors after this, but give us your final thoughts. You brought the heat. You get to close up our episode.
Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you, Collin. I listen to, if you're a candidate, watch this show because I love Michael, Chris. You give such great advice. I take notes every episode. But I just want to say, it's a hard job to be a candidate. And sometimes, you will, like Mark said, get the lies, get the, but it's all worth it when you talk to the voter and they have so much faith in you and they just support you so much. It's like sometimes you just feel so blessed. And so that's what keeps me going every day is voters just having so much faith in our race. So District 51, we're working hard. If you want to volunteer, go to my website, Tosi, Tosi, FordRep.com. And, we're working hard each and every day. We appreciate everybody praying for us or doing whatever you can to see us to the finish line. And I just want to say thank you again for having me on the show. It was an absolute pleasure.
Was glad to have you. Thanks for working hard and thanks for putting your name out there to run for office. I know it gets nasty, as Mark said. Well, to our watchers, to our viewers, to our listeners, thank you so much for being with us every week. As always, we'll be back next week. But in the meantime, get out there, work your butts off. Lane Davis, our producer, thanks for all the hard work you put in. H. Upman has failed me. This should be my cloud of the week. My cigar's been falling apart all episodes. So I'm fighting with that. So I'm going to put this thing out. My little buddy, my little dino is looking at me through the window. I'm going to go hold my son and then get back to campaigns. So we'll catch you all next week on the Smoke-Filled Room.